me, I have the impression that the driving force, maybe the strongest driving force of this project was a place, namely this island Fårö in Sweden. So on the one hand for its beauty and its light, maybe on the other hand for its famous spirit, which is omnipresent. What's your bond to this island?
I mean, yes, the film would never have existed without Fårö, obviously. And Fårö was really, the idea of setting the film in Fårö was really the thing that made the film become real at some point, the idea of the film. But I have to say that before I got this idea of setting it on Fårö and making the film have this connection to Bergman, before that there was, during many years for me, the idea of one day making a film about a couple of directors that would ultimately be a film about inspiration, about the writing process, as it is for me. And I had this idea during a long time while I was doing other films, and it was kind of waiting the right time. And well, I've been admiring the films of Bergman for a long time, long time, more and more, as I was doing my own films. And then he died in 2007. I had seen Sarah Band, his last film, shortly before he died, and it's a film that impressed me a lot also. And then I started to hear more and more about that island, about the Bergman estate, so these houses where people would go and stay and write. I heard about the Bergman Week, and I guess I started to fantasize about this place. I mean, the place has been a subject of fantasy for a lot of people and a lot of cinephiles from all around the world. It's a place of pilgrimage for a lot of filmmakers and cinephiles. But so it started to be more and more of a subject in my mind. And then I met a couple who had just been to the Bergman Week and went to the Bergman Safari, something that I didn't invent, it really exists. And so it started out like this, and at some point I thought maybe this is the right place to make a film about what cinema means for me and how difficult it is to write, but the mystery of creation, of inspiration. I thought maybe I should go there and see if something happens. And the next year I actually got invited from the Bergman Week. They showed two of my films, and the guy who was doing the discussion after the film was Hampus, who you see in the film. And he actually drove me around. And I think it's really started like this, like that. I don't think the film is as autobiographical as it seems, because I never went there with the father of my child. I wrote the film there, but I wrote it alone, so it's my experience of writing the film is quite different. But the first time I went there, it was, from the start, yes, it was a place haunted by Bergman's presence, obviously, and of course the fact that it carries all this heritage of Bergman matters a lot, and the film dialogues with that a lot, of course. But I was also very impressed by the beauty of the island, and I think from the start I had my own experience of the island. I had my own feelings. I found my own space, so to say. And I think if the island had only been Bergman Island, to me, I could not have found my way into it. But from the start, and a lot thanks to Hampus, actually, I made also other experiences, and I had the chance to discover it with fresh eyes, and thanks to that, I could find my way and set my story there without feeling too oppressed by Bergman's heritage.
And I have the impression of the total contrary. I think from the very beginning you have a kind of ironic view on a lot of things, on this commercializations of the Bergman tourism, and I think you take some distance from the very beginning and find a lightness to deal with him, and also to see him with respect, with admiration, but also as a private person who maybe didn't stand up to his tasks as a father or as a fellow citizen. So there is a lot of distance.
Well, I think a lot of great artists were bad fathers, unfortunately. But yes, I think there is hopefully some humor and some distance, but it doesn't mean at all that I despise these people or their love for Bergman or their quests for something that is impossible to find. I mean, I'm one of these people. I also made the Bergman Safari. I made it 2 or 3 times. So if I make fun of these people, I make fun of myself too, because I'm also one of these people who try desperately to find the houses and who were looking for something that never existed. In that perspective, I could say I'm just like Chris when she goes with the bike and tries to find the house and is disappointed that it's gone, you know. So I make fun of them, but I understand them too, and I find it quite moving that you still can find people who are looking for the signs of a great filmmaker who is gone. That actually, as a director, I find that rather comforting to think that some directors can still have that kind of importance for other people, and that people from all around the world would go to the place where Bergman lived. I mean, when you go there, you meet people coming from Japan, from South America, from anywhere, who are just wanting to spend some time with the ghost of Bergman, and I actually find that very comforting as a director. So yes, there is humor because you have to, and I think some situations are obviously kind of funny, but there is still a lot of admiration, and it's the same about. I know there is this discussion with Chris who gets angry because of the way, because of what she hears of the way Bergman lived and the fact that he didn't raise his kids but it doesn't necessarily mean that I am Chris at this moment. I understand her anger, and I understand why, as a woman, she could feel there is something unfair about it. But and it is the case, I think. It's a reality that's what Bergman did, making so many kids and so many films at the same time and not raising them. I don't think a woman could have done it. But once I've said that, I have to confess it doesn't take away my love for the films of Bergman. I still love them as much, and I still do, even after spending so much time with his ghost and with his films while I was making this film.
So, and how about the writing process, which was one of your themes of the film? I mean, you develop a very complex narration with 3 layers, which go on in a kind of spiral. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Well, I know it can seem a little bit mental or theoretical, but actually it was never for me. It's quite surprising maybe, but even though Chris speaks about her difficulty of writing and how she struggles, that looks more like what it was for me to write when I started. But when I wrote this film, actually, it was the most, as I said in the beginning, it was the most stimulating and in a way easiest experience ever. So my experience of writing this film was completely different from the one of Chris in the film. I think it had to do with the magic of the island, really. I felt like some doors were opened for me suddenly, and that I could move freely from fiction to reality and from past to present and create that confusion effortless. I mean, it wasn't something that I intended to. It's not something I decided I wanted to do. It just happened. And it felt right because it was the best way for me to capture how writing and filmmaking works for me. I mean, since I ever started making films, I always worked in a way where I have this dialogue between my own experience of life and my films. They are in constant dialogue. And I was trying to meditate on that when I wrote the film. And I think that's what led me to writing the film that way, where you have the film in the film and then some more layers that create a confusion. But that confusion really reflects how it works for me. I feel confused many times. Sometimes I made films that were so personal, and people would ask me a lot of questions about them, like how close it was to my own life. And sometimes I wasn't even sure anymore, because sometimes making films for me was like creating new memories of my life, taken from my life, but it became to a point where I wasn't sure what was real and what was unreal. And that's part of what I tried to express in that film, that confusion.
And was it just natural that you wrote this film in English? It was your first film in English, I
yes,
think, yeah?
there was several reasons to that. I think the first reason for me was to bring distance, actually. I had the feeling that if the film was going to be in French, about a couple of French filmmakers, it would have locked the film in a world that's too close to mine, as if I would make an autofiction or a documentary on my own life, and I didn't want to do that. And so I didn't write the film I wrote it in French, but it was translated into English, and then I reworked the script with the actors. But making the film in English was a way for me to go into fiction. It was bringing not only another language, but when you have people talk another language than yours, it brings also another sensibility, another culture somehow. So it helped me to actually bring distance between the story and I.
Are there questions?
So, how did you manage to rent out the Bergman houses? Did you get like a special deal with the Bergman Week? Because apparently, my impression is from the characters I got into the film is that anyone can walk into these houses and like create stuff. So,
well, but it's. Maybe I shouldn't say that too loud, but it's not so difficult to get in the houses of Bergman, actually. Although I changed one of the names of the house because I felt guilty to actually give the address, you know. But if you want to go to the Bergman estate and stay in one of his houses, you have to just fill a form and have a project, but it doesn't have to be anything to do with Bergman. So when I was there, and I was there several times, I met all kinds of people, including teachers and researchers, musicians, designers. I mean, they just had a project, and they were asking to stay there sometimes a week, sometimes a month. But it's quite welcoming, actually. And so when you stay in one of the houses, because he had like 6 or 7 houses on the island, but there is the one private house that you see at the end, the one that was made by an architect, a modern house. And so when you stay in one of the other houses, you are allowed to go to the main private house every 5 days a week from 9 to 7. It's from 9 to 5. It's like a library, like you would go to the library, and you go there and you meet in the different rooms of the house. You just meet people who are writing and thinking or dreaming. It's a very special and inspiring place, and all the people who I met there all said that they felt the same kind of intensity. And I never talked so much about existence of ghosts than the times that I was on the island.
thank you. Looking forward to it once I go to Faro.
There's a question there.
I was very surprised by the ending. You have a lot of webs and cobwebs and stories, and to me it looked just bring in the child. In the end, the marriage problem of Chris and her husband are apparently resolved by June appearing in car with the husband, and everything that looked very complex before put her very creativity into question, just disappeared. What has happened there?
Well, a child.
Yeah, the child happened.
Yeah. I don't think it makes all the unsaid things inside the couple disappear. I just think for a second it disappears, and for a moment the presence of the child becomes more important than anything. That's yes, but for a moment. It doesn't mean that in the future the problems or the distance or the tensions within the couple will not remain, and maybe that will mean the end of that couple. We don't know exactly, but when the child arrives on the island with her dad, and at the moment where the child finds a mother and they are so happy to meet again, in that moment everything else disappears. Yes, I do believe in that, and I do like this idea that that a child at some point appears as something really essential and more important than everything. I think the film actually deals with that, because in this conversation they have in the restaurant in the beginning, where they're talking about the fact that Bergman didn't raise his own kids, I think it appears quite clearly that for Chris, her child is something that is very important, and that she would not leave it on the side, and that's part of why she cannot understand why Bergman would do that. So I think it's quite obvious that there is in the film this question about how can we be an artist and a creator and write and be habited by this quest of creation on the one hand, and on the other hand raise a family, love children, for instance. Or I do think it's not necessarily easy to find the right balance between both, but I think Chris in the film tries. And so yes, the child is important, and that is some kind of revelation at the end.
We have maybe time for a very short question and a short answer. And then
if I always write my own screenplays for my films, yes, until now, I would love to direct films from screenplays that I would not have written, but until now I could never. My films are so personal, and also they are like one single idea and emotion that is divided into a script and a preparation and a shooting and a editing, but at the end it's like one and the same thing, just with different stages. And so when I write a script, it's not so much about the script than it is about the idea I have of the future film. And I guess it's why when I receive a script from another person that's not written from me, that's not my language, I'm not sure what's behind it. I feel most of the time until now, I felt always very at ease with other scripts, because I was missing all this world behind that I have when it's my own scripts. I hope it was a short answer.
Yeah, I'm afraid we have to leave because the next screening is already on schedule. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mia.